Hi, Will Schweller here. I'm excited to share with you some of the exciting lots in Clarke Auction's September 12th sale, starting with this mixed media on board here by the American artist Conrad Kramer. It's titled Portrait of Florence. It's from 1958 and combines sort of applied collage elements with oil to create a really modernist portrait. Nice American piece, but certainly looking to the European modernism of Picasso, for example. This comes out of a Scarsdale collection with a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate. As we slide along here, we have this nice oil on board by the American abstractionist Nicholas Caron, who was one of the sort of early New York school abstractionists. This piece comes out of a Washington Heights collection. I think has just the most fantastic use of color. I really love that. I don't even know if that's like a mauve there. This has a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. It's one of two Carons in the sale. Above it, in keeping in the similar vein, we have this work here by Charles Green Shaw titled Isan from 1960. Another nice New York abstract expressionist painting, very gestural here, sort of reminiscent of Klein in a lot of respects. This piece is coming from a Long Island collection. It's being sold with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. From the same collection, we have this work here by the Japanese-American abstractionist Kenzo Okada. Okada trained in Japan and Paris, painted figurative paintings, and then came to the US in 1950. Got roped in with Betty Parsons, whose gallery stamps are on the back of this work here, and ended up painting pure abstract works here. I think what really defines his painting is a real restraint in form and color. This is a very subtle, but still quite powerful piece. Like I said, it comes from that same Long Island collection, and has an $8,000 to $12,000 estimate. Here we have an interesting watercolor from a Pelham collection by an artist named Wilhelm Wiedemann, but also Guillermo Wiedemann, a German artist who ended up in Latin America in the 30s and 40s. This piece is from 1946. Port scene, obviously, really heavy use of watercolor here. Certain passages are almost reduced to pure abstraction. It's being sold with a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. Above it, we have a nice print after Miro from a White Plains collection with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate, in really great condition, and a nice package here with this sort of chromed frame. From a Greenwich collection, we have this oil on canvas from 2002 by the now late Russian nonconformist painter Vladimir Ovchinnikov. It's titled The Red Car. It's classic of Ovchinnikov in its sort of surrealist composition. I mean, here we have a train car, I don't know if that's a caboose, without an engine, a man hanging off on it, and then being chased by some sort of angel figure. It's a rather strange painting, and it too, like the Okada, is being sold with an $8,000 to $12,000 estimate. One of my favorite paintings in the sale here comes from a Scarsdale collection. It's of course by the American artist Hunt Slonim, someone we handle quite regularly here. This piece is titled Carmen Miranda, and I think is sort of a portrait and homage to Carmen Miranda, the Brazilian singer and entertainer from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. We see her here down in the lower right, and she's accompanied sort of by the tropical birds that can both allude to her being a Brazilian entertainer, but are also a pretty common motif in Sloanim's paintings. This work also has just fantastic, I don't know if it picks up in the video, but sort of metallic gold tones that really bring a certain vibrancy to the painting, even more applicable up here. It really catches the light quite well. It has a $6,000 to $9,000 estimate. We're going to pop over to this wall here, which is pretty tightly hung. Up in the upper right corner here, we have a nice Anglo-Dutch 17th century genre painting that I'm quite fond of. Comes out of a New York collection, being sold with an $8,000 to $1,200 estimate. Below it, we have a nice cityscape by the American artist Gianni Chilfone. Sorry about that. Sort of captures autumn quite well. And below it, we have a nice landscape by the French painter Henri Dabadie of Fez, Morocco. This comes out of a collection in Brooklyn, has a $6,000 to $900 estimate. To its left, we have a landscape by the British-born artist Wilfred Glenn. De Glen's one of sort of the great English impressionist early 20th century landscape painters. This here, interestingly enough, is the golf course in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Comes out of a New Jersey collection. We're selling it with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. Above it, we have a really fascinating old master painting by the 17th century French painter Charles Natoire. It's of course of Apollo here playing the a harp. It's from 1755, and it's not going to really show up in the video just the way we've got the light here in the gallery, but the painting is signed and dated across sort of the strap across Apollo's chest there, so please do check out our catalog to get better images of that. It's being sold with a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate. It's coming out of a collection in Long Island. To its left, we have an interesting little still life painting by the American painter William Moore Davis. This is from 1859, so right in the build-up to the Civil War. And what we see is the various life stages of a dandelion. Now, I think it's an interesting painting in that, it sort of alludes to still life floral painting that, you think of these great bouquets with flowers that bloom at different times of the year. Here we're seeing sort of the various life stages of a single plant. And I don't know if there's some sort of metaphor there for the American condition at the time. It's coming out of a Long Island collection as well and has 1,000 to 1,500 as an estimate. Below it, from the same Brooklyn collection as the Dabadi, we have this nice New York scene in pastels by Glenn Henshaw, who's known for his cityscapes and is really thought of as a master of pastels. It's being sold with a $500 to $700 estimate. Below it, we have a nice charming watercolor of children at picnic. I don't know if they're feeding their chickens, by the American artist Julian Ricks, who's known as a California painter, did great work in landscapes, but I think we've got this really charming little genre scene here. Comes out of a local collection with a $300 to $500 estimate. Hanging above the doorway here, we have another one of the real highlights of the sale. This is a landscape by American Impressionist Maurice Braun. Trained in New York in a sort of more traditional French style, Braun ended up in San Diego, which is why we have this painting here of the San Diego harbor. I think really excellent use of light. Again, it's a sort of somber painting, maybe California, sort of evening sun here. It's being sold with a $6,000 to $9,000 estimate. To its left, we have a nice little mixed media on paper, a watercolor abstract by the American abstractionist Sam Gilliam. Gilliam's considered sort of one of the greats of post-war painting. He's known perhaps best for his really large, almost stained canvas abstractions that sort of, to the untrained eye look a little bit like tie-dye. So here we have him kind of accomplishing a similar effect on a smaller scale. It's being sold with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. Below it, we have a nice etching after Magritte, composition with Ear and Bell. This is from that same Brooklyn collection as the works we were just looking at. It's being sold at an $8,000 to $1,200 estimate, stamped signature there in the lower right. Below it, we have one of two, and we'll see the second in just a minute here. Drawings by Louise Nevelson that are being sold together as a group. They're really interesting early works from the 1930s, almost fantasy scenes here. We see these sort of like women, I don't know if they're, angels or the tooth fairy sort of floating in an undefined space. Rather unique for Nevelson's work, but she did do a number of drawings in the 30s that you can find online that are figurative, sort of not her more typical abstract work that sort of defines her. They're very nice. They're coming from a New York collection, and the pair is being sold with a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. To their left, from the same Scarsdale collection as the Sloan, we have this fantastic work by American Impressionist Henry Schwabe. It's titled Woman with a Fan, has Hammer Gallery label stickers on the back, and it's just a fantastic, the woman's painted quite well, but I think the sort of treatment of the silk dress she's wearing here and the Japanese fan are just fantastic. The colors, are still quite vibrant. This is a painting, over 100 years old from 1911. It's a really fantastic piece. It's being sold with a $4,000 to $6,000 estimate and a great gold frame as well. Down here in the lower left, really quickly, just to point out, we have the second of the two Nevelsons. They're being sold together as one lot. Above it, we have an interesting mixed media work from the 90s, an American artist named Cole Morgan. This piece is titled E2 Bleu. Comes from a collection down in Florida, actually, and has a $1,500 to $2,500 estimate. Some of these passages here are applied to the canvas. Like this right here, for example. Above it, we have a nice oil on paper by the American artist Selena Trieff, worked out in Cape Cod. This is a chicken. The consignor calls it the chicken icon because the chicken is placed here on a gold ground, much like traditional icon painting. Really fun and whimsical piece. She's known for her work in oils and often paints birds against these sort of gold grounds. So this nice little piece is being sold at the $600 to $900 estimate. And the last piece we'll talk about in this gallery here is a nice oil on board by the Puerto Rican artist Angel Boteo. Here a portrait of a woman, rather typical of the artist's work, in an artist-made frame here. Comes from a New Jersey collection. It's a really great size work. Often these portraits come a little smaller, and we're selling it with a $1,500 to $2,500 estimate. So you'll be able to see here there is a bit of abrasion to the varnish, which is why our estimate's a bit conservative. I'm really excited to share with you these 5 paintings, which represent probably the most exciting fine art lot in the sale. They're a grouping of 5 acrylic and Liquitex on canvas works by the Aboriginal Australian painter Emily Kameyanwarai. She is deceased now, but is seen as sort of one of the most important Aboriginal Australian painters of the 20th century, incredibly prolific, died in the mid-1990s. These 5 works here, which are seen as one piece, are titled Yam Dreaming, which was a series of paintings she did in the 90s towards the end of her life that are these really pure abstract paintings that sort of allude to the vine structures of yams. I'm going to butcher the sort of spiritual significance of these paintings, but what I think makes them really interesting to Western collectors is they represent a really pure, significant abstract style of painting that kind of develops independent of the Western canon, I suppose. And beyond their sort of spiritual significance, they are just tremendously graphic and dynamic paintings. I mean, they're very lyrical. The use of color is quite interesting. They come from a local collection and have on the backs, Steve, I don't know if you'll be able to see here, they have the inventory numbers from the Australian gallery that they were originally a part of here. As you can see, this is letter B. They're numbered A through E. They're being sold with a $20,000 to $30,000 estimate. Aboriginal art is something that is increasingly collected in the West, in American markets, and Warai's work is really, really valued and pretty rare on the market. So we're quite delighted to be selling these in September. All right, in the main gallery here, we have a nice acrylic on canvas by the Israeli artist Maimon. A rather large oil on canvas wrapped around masonite by the Bauhaus painter Schwarinsky. A nice agamograph here by Yaakov Agam. A well-painted watercolor port scene by American artist Chaim Gross. An Al Hirschfeld lithograph. A Paul Jacoulet woodcut. We have another grouping of 2 in the sale. Rather interesting watercolor here by the early American street artist Ronnie Coutron. His work often features American cartoon characters. Here we've got Felix the cat. And above it, a nice lithograph after Picasso for the Côte d'Azur. A rather emotionally loaded abstract here by the American artist Augustus Geertz. And to its upper right, there's the other 2 Jacoulet woodcuts. Here's a rather interesting painting from a White Plains collection. From 1877, it depicts a tiger hunt. It's initialed in the lower right, WSS. A rather detailed painting here of tigers being strapped to the backs of elephants. Here we've got a nice collage in oil by American abstractionist John Little. This is from 1958. And here a Robert Bliss painting of a circus performance, figures pulling ropes. The sale has a number of these sort of decorative European landscapes, sort of classical landscapes. And above it we have a nice Yossi Bergner oil on canvas still life, orange flowers, nice Israeli painting. Here from a collection up in Connecticut, a rather large Ernst Meinsner painting of a landscape with cattle. I really love this cow here, looks to be in the middle of a moo. We've got a couple really great works by Tromke, here of a tailor and of a pretzel vendor, really nice early 20th century Lower East Side Manhattan scenes. We're gonna pop just quickly over here to a nice William Trost Richards landscape of the coast. I don't know if this is in Scotland. The church sort of obscured by the mist here. Above it, a nice abstract by John Holtberg from 1969. Another great abstract painting, this by Godwin, another late 50s piece here. And the sale has a number of nice portraits. This sort of English or American, a woman holding I don't know if that's a parakeet or a cockatoo, really charming from a local collection. Another example, nice 19th century American painting here on the other side of the furniture. And above it, yet another great American painting. This by an artist named E. White. And I'll wrap up here just with the other Nicholas Carone painting because I'm quite drawn to this piece here. We looked at one up in the front gallery. This is from that same Washington Heights collection. It's also being sold with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. And I think really Carone is able to accomplish quite a lot with a fairly limited range of colors here. It's more or less variations on gray. We've got about 150 fine art lots in the September 12th sale, so please do check out our catalog. You'll get great detailed photographs of all the works, full condition reports, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks.